Welcome everyone. My name's Ian Meeker. I work with the University of Wisconsin Extension as the 4-H Youth Development Educator for Bayfield County. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you Greg Fisher. Greg lives in the town of Washburn, just north of here. And he is the facilities manager for the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point's aquaculture demonstration facility. And he's going to tell you all the current research that they're doing up at that facility and how it impacts aquaculture across the state and across the country and even across the world. So Greg, come on up.
Thanks, Ian. So I was asked to come here tonight to talk a little bit about aquaculture and also explain about the Northern Aquaculture Demonstration Facility. And so with that, I'm going to move forward here. So what is aquaculture and aquaponics? So by definition, aquaculture is the rearing of aquatic animals, fish and crustaceans under controlled conditions in various systems like ponds or indoor tanks. Sometimes aquaculture is called fish farming. You may have heard that out and about when you're talking to people and somebody talks about a fish farm or fish farming or a fish hatchery. Aquaponics is the rearing of fish and plants together in a closed system. That's kind of a very old system that's been practiced for many, many years. It goes all the way back to early Egypt and the Chinese, but it's recently, we've seen a resurgence in aquaponics. So what does aquaculture mean to us and how does it affect us? So a lot of you in the audience are probably thinking that aquaculture doesn't affect me. And how many of you go fishing? There's quite a few of you. Do any of you use fresh bait or live bait? Some of you. So that's aquaculture. In Wisconsin, the bait that's reared, that is sold at the bait shops is reared and certified. In fact, that's why bait costs quite a bit more now than it used to. I don't know if you guys remember, you probably do. You used to be able to get a dozen minnows for about $1. How much are a dozen minnows now? They're about $7 to $8 for a dozen minnows. It's because of that certification and the process involved with rearing. How about aquariums? If you have goldfish or fish in your aquariums, those oftentimes can come from aquaculture. There's a huge goldfish farm in Pennsylvania that raises goldfish. They ship around the world. They ship them to China. They ship them to other places in Europe. A lot of it is the fancy goldfish, and they spend millions and millions of dollars shipping those and selling those. People spend millions of dollars for those goldfish. Sport fish is another aquaculture use that we see. We have sport fish that are stocked into our lakes and rivers by natural resource agencies, and we go out and fish for those and hopefully catch them. If not, it's just called fishing, not catching, right? The last one is my favorite. That's fresh fish to eat. And the one in the picture there is not for eating. That's a bait fish. But I like the fresh fish to eat the most. And aquaculture is really a great place to get fresh fish to eat on a regular basis. This is a nice picture. A little dark here for you guys to see, but that's a lake trout. That's out in the Apostle Islands, just a little short drive north of here. And that's a nice lake trout that we caught out fishing. That young man is from Japan. He never fished before in his life, and so he's pretty excited. And I think he's more excited about taking it home and eating it than he was about catching it. But aquaculture it happens every day. That's kind of what part of my take-home message tonight is that you are affected by aquaculture all the time. How many of you happen to have a fish pond or a pond at home that you would like to have fish in? At least one. I know that. And this is a good example of a fishing pond. This young lady from Germany who never fished before caught that largemouth bass out of a small fishing pond, and she loved it. This is one of my favorites. Of course, not only is this my youngest daughter, but she gives us an A+ for consumer taste tests on walleye that have been reared in our fish hatchery and fried up on a Friday night for a Friday night fish fry. And I'm sure everybody sitting here can remember the Friday night fish fry and hopefully enjoy it tomorrow night, which is Friday night. And a couple facts that I'd like to share with you. Currently, more than 90% of the seafood eaten by Americans is imported from other countries. That's astounding when I think about that. We're importing all this seafood, and especially in Wisconsin where we're surrounded by water. And right here we have Lake Superior out the back door. That just blows me away. Fewer fossil fuels are used to bring local fish to your table, whether they're wild caught or farmed. So that's very important to think about that. The other thing is, by purchasing local fish from Wisconsin farmers and Great Lakes commercial fishermen, you also are keeping your food dollars close to home and you're supporting local family businesses. That's huge, and I think that's something that we need to think about whenever we go out and purchase fish or seafood. If you can get it locally, it's going to be better. It's better for you. It's also fresh. It's going to taste better, and that's really important. Approximately half of the seafood worldwide is raised on farms. And this is because a lot of the harvest in the capture fisheries has peaked globally. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But because of this, aquaculture is being recognized as a valuable and important way to raise fish and seafood for us to eat. Aquaculture is the fastest growing form of food production in the world. It's the fastest growing agricultural program in the world, and it ranks #1 in the Midwest. Wisconsin ranks #1 in the Midwest. So if we look at this on a global perspective, and we look at the capture production, which is shown in the lower part of this graph, compared to aquaculture production, and it's a little darker on the upper part of the graph. Aquaculture production is overtaking capture production, and we're seeing that more and more. As you can notice, the capture production has kind of leveled off. If I can get my little cursor to work. Capture production has leveled off and even decreased in some locales due to a variety of reasons, but aquaculture production is increasing. If we look at the world's population and how let's see if I can get this to work. The population is increasing all the time, and our food supply is increasing. It's very important to think about where are we going to get this added protein for our diets, this added fish. Fish is really becoming a sought-after resource, and the capture fisheries just can't keep up with that. If you think about it, and if we look at this graph a little bit, this table, if we look back into the 1950s and the 1960s, a lot of the stocks that were underexploited down in here, as we have moved forward over time, they become exploited, overexploited, and some of them have even crashed now. So, now that we're into the 2015, this number here, 32% of stocks had collapsed as of 2003. That's probably higher now. So the world's capture fishery has been exploited. It is starting to crash. We're seeing that happening worldwide. So we've got to find a source for that protein and a source for those fish to feed the growing population. So aquaculture really is starting to shine. Aquaculture output is expected to rise over 33% in the next decade, and it's going to help meet a demand for healthy fish and healthy food as some of the capture fishing is stagnating. If we look over at this little thing here, the farmed fish to exceed wild fish in human consumption by the year 2018. I actually think we have exceeded that. I thought I saw something in the news recently that said we've either exceeded or we've at least matched it. So we're ahead of the curve right now. And this one here really scares me. Tainted seafood reaching the U.S. Some of these are blurbs and things taken off of the paper or off of television. But tainted seafood reaching the U.S., that's becoming more and more of a problem. I don't know if any of you saw, there was a big special, I'm trying to think what TV station or who carried it, but it was about mislabeling a fish. And they found that very high numbers, like 70 or 80% of the fish are mislabeled that we eat at restaurants and that we eat out when we're out eating fish at different places. And what's happening is that fish are being captured overseas or in other locales. They're cheap, they're shipped over here, they're being sold cheaply, so the restaurants are buying them, and instead of offering you walleye for $19 a pound, they're offering you walleye for $7.99 all you can eat. And if you can get walleye for $7.99 all you can eat, it's not walleye. It's probably something from Europe like a Zander or a European walleye, and it doesn't taste the same as our walleye, and it's not farmed the same, and it's not captured the same, doesn't have the same attributes that our walleye would have. So just buyer beware, I guess, is the saying. If we look at some of this, how it's affecting our food choices and what's happening, and there's a lot of awareness in food now, and people are starting to be more concerned about what they're eating and where they're eating. I don't ever remember when I was younger my parents asking a waitress, well, where did that cow come from, or where did that lettuce come from, or where did that fish come from? But now we're starting to see things like this. We have the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch. And if you notice here, they have as best choices, they have Arctic char farmed. Interesting. Bass, striped, farmed. If you go down a little bit, they've got rainbow trout, farmed. So under their best choices, they have a lot of farmed fish. They also have, for you folks that are looking for something to eat, Lake Superior whitefish, which is capture fishery out here. It's local, right? And so the farm-raised fish and the local fish are doing very well on the Monterey Bay Aquaculture Seafood Watch. I think the take-home message from this slide is to just, again, be aware of what you're eating and think about what you're eating and think about the fish, where it's coming from. So I've had a lot of discussions with people about aquaculture. I've had people tell me aquaculture is bad. It pollutes the environment. It releases animals that don't belong into the environment. It causes pollution. A lot of issues with aquaculture, they say. So they don't support aquaculture. I'm not eating a farm-raised fish. Tastes like liver. That's what I hear a lot of. Tastes like other things. So I have a couple things for those people. Usually I invite them up and have a fish fry. And I say, so tell me which fish is farm-raised and which one is wild-caught. And most of the time I can trick them so they can't tell. Our farm-raised fish is wonderful. I've eaten wild-caught fish for a long time. And there's the farm-raised fish we raise, if it's taken care of correctly, is wonderful. The other thing is that a lot of these horror stories we hear about are related to net pen culture, usually on the East Coast or maybe the West Coast. And we're pretty far away from that here in the Midwest, so we are we don't hear all the stories, we don't hear everything, we just hear little bits and pieces on the news, like net pen, falls apart due to heavy waves and fish are released all over and the officials are upset because of this or something. You don't hear the whole story. But, one of the cool things is there is no net pen fish farming in Wisconsin. We don't have it. I don't see it coming to Wisconsin anytime soon. It's just not on the docket. It's not being discussed. The fish in Wisconsin are raised in 4 ways. We have flow-through water going through something called like a raceway or an outdoor pond where there's lots of water flowing through. And you'd have fish like rainbow trout or brook trout maybe in that water. This is really common if you go up to any of our hatcheries, our state hatcheries, federal hatcheries, tribal hatcheries. A lot of them have flow-through tanks and the water's rushing through. It's single pass usage. It's really clean. This picture here that's on the slide is a picture of Rushing Waters Trout Farm down in Palmyra, Wisconsin. It's the largest trout farm in Wisconsin, and he uses flow-through technology to take care of his fish. You can kind of see the water coming out right there, and he's got aerators in his pond, and he's got a bunch of kids fishing. So it's a really nice location. The other way that some of the places raise fish is using ponds, which they are treating more like a seasonal pond. So it's filled up maybe with rainwater, maybe some well water. They're raising fish like yellow perch, bluegills, or walleyes. And that's how a lot of the walleyes are raised in Wisconsin for the stocking programs. So if you've heard of the governor's walleye initiative, and these people raising walleyes to stock more walleyes so there's more walleyes to catch, that's how they're raising them, is in ponds. The third one is recirculation, and recirculation is higher technology, and it's not new, but it's newer to Wisconsin. And probably in the last 10 or 15 years, we've been seeing more and more interest in recirculation. And this is where you're reusing a lot of the water. It's an indoor facility, so everything is inside under a building, and you're limiting predation on the fish, you're controlling where the fish are at, so there's no chance of escapement or any issues with that. And you might see fish like Arctic char or yellow perch or tilapia in a recirculation system, among others. We've even been raising walleyes in our recirculation system quite successfully. So recirc is really cool because you're reusing a lot of that water. And the last one I just want to point out is aquaponics. And so aquaponics is indoors, and it's mixing the plants and the fish together. And you may have seen this, or you may have read about it somewhere. Aquaponics is really cool, and it's really taking off in a lot of different areas. You read about it. There's a lot of different things related to aquaponics going on right now. And you typically would see fish like yellow perch or maybe tilapia in an aquaponics setting. And so those four methods kind of outline what's happening in Wisconsin. And I did want to just point out, though, like any other type of farming, aquaculture can affect the environment and if it's done improperly. I would like to say that most of the Wisconsin fish farmers that we deal with, especially the successful ones, are really worried about their fish farms, and they're really worried about the water that leaves their farms that's going into the environment, because they live there and they raise kids there. Their kids are swimming in the ponds not with the fish, but maybe right next to the fish. And so they are concerned about that just like we are. And I honestly can't say I've run into a fish farmer that has a polluted source coming out of his facility in Wisconsin. The other thing is that, just to keep them honest, Wisconsin fish farms are regulated by both state and federal agencies. So if they don't do this on their own, they're going to be forced to anyways. So there's a lot of regulations involved with fish farming. You have to be certified, and you are inspected and things like that by different agencies. So an interesting fact is that the U.S. government cannot regulate the environmental impacts of international fish farms. When you look at it that way, well, yeah, of course, right? The U.S. government can't tell other places how to deal with their farms, but we're buying fish from those fish farms, so we're sustaining those businesses. So if you go to Walmart tonight and you buy tilapia that's 99 cents a pound, that's a product of somewhere else, good luck with eating that fish tonight. The take-home message, again, is know what you are buying and know what you're eating. because those fish farms that are located in other areas potentially may not be regulated like a U.S. fish farm. I want to thank Kathy Klein from Wisconsin Sea Grant for a lot of this aquaculture facts and info. She was very helpful, and they have a lot of great stuff on their webpage. If you go to Wisconsin Sea Grant, and you can find a lot of helpful information there. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'd like to talk a little bit more in detail with something that I actually know quite a bit more about than world aquaculture. This is about the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point Northern Aquaculture Demonstration Facility. That's a long title, and so we abbreviate it UWSP NADF, N-A-D-F. So if you hear somebody talk about NADF, or if you hear me talk about it, that's what I'm talking about. It's a state-of-the-art facility. This is a conceptual drawing when it was built about 12 or 13 years ago. And we have various components on site to do education and demonstration. We're located in Red Cliff, Wisconsin, just a short drive up the shoreline, right along beautiful Lake Superior, which is the greatest of all the Great Lakes. And we're about 1.5 miles past the Legendary Waters Resort and Casino. And if you come by, and you guys can come for a tour anytime you'd like. We're open 7 days a week. So when the facility was constructed, it was to promote and advance the development of commercial aquaculture in a northern climate. That was part of the mission. That's not the whole mission. There's quite a bit more that goes on up there, but that's one thing that we were very interested in. And in Wisconsin, that's really important because there's over 2,500 registered fish farms. There's one sitting in the audience, right? And so to be a fish farm in Wisconsin, I mean, you could just have a pond with some fish in it, but you're supposed to be registered. Or you could have a whole blown up facility that employs 20 people or 40 people, and you're processing fish and selling fish. And so there's a whole wide range. And a lot of our fish farms are located down here in the southern part of the state and near epicenters of people, right? Because if you're raising fish, you've got to be able to sell your fish if you're going to make a living. So Palmyra, as I mentioned, Rushing Waters is down in this area, kind of between Madison and Milwaukee. And there's other fish farms located all around the state, right? And we're up here, way up in the north. We don't have a lot of fish farms by us, but I think they figured that if we could raise fish this far north and we could demonstrate technologies, then we could do it anywhere if we could do it up there. So I guess that's what I keep telling myself. And who else has Allison Dairyland it's Allison Fishland for us, and she came up to our facility, and that's pretty cool. So even she came all the way up to see us. So what is NADF promoting, or what are we talking about with aquaculture? And what we're trying to do is promote sustainable, land-based, closed containment, recirculating aquaculture systems. So that's kind of a mouthful, and what does that mean? So I'm going to talk a little bit more about recirculating systems, but we want to promote sustainable systems that aren't affecting the environment in negative ways and that are going to stay in business for more than 1 or 2 years. So this is really important. We've had a lot of aquaculture opportunities pop up in Wisconsin, and we've had a lot of them slip through our fingers. And so we're trying to build successful businesses that are going to be in business and stay here and hire people and provide good quality fish or seafood locally so that we can eat those. The other thing that we would like to see is that these recirculating systems and these closed containment systems provide separation from wild populations, which guarantee no transmission of disease, parasites, inbreeding, or competition. So that's a big issue with aquaculture, like the net pen aquaculture. That's what everybody's afraid of. So by doing this on land, we can get away from that, and we can control those things from not causing problems to our wild populations. The other cool thing is that these systems are promoted and endorsed by many environmental agencies, including the Conservation Fund, Freshwater Institute, the Atlantic Salmon Federation, Tides Canada. I know there's others involved too, and others that are supporting this, and I think you'll see more and more over the next few years. But to support that mission and to support kind of what we're promoting, the facility, which is right here, houses indoor recirculation systems. So like I mentioned, we have these tank systems. We have outdoor ponds as well to show people how to raise fish in outdoor ponds, because that is very common in Wisconsin. And we have a bunch of school kids here that just put up a nice wetland sign where we actually created a wetland back here to deal with our effluent in a natural way. So recirculating aquaculture. So I'm not going to go into the 3-day course on recirculating aquaculture. It's pretty technical. There's a lot of cool things like biofilters and oxygen generators and oxygen injection and stuff like that involved. But basically it's recirculating water through these tanks that would hold a variety of fish, maybe fish like these Atlantic salmon, or rainbow trout, or Arctic char, things like that. And the water is recirculated around through some different components like a biofilter and a drum filter, which are removing solids and removing the ammonia that the fish are excreting into the water, and converting it so that the water can then be reused by the fish. They're pretty efficient systems. We're looking at probably a 95% recirculation rate of the water. So what that means is that a facility that typically would need maybe 1,000 gallons of water to operate can operate on a couple hundred gallons of water. So it really dramatically decreases the amount of water that you need. Flow-through raceways, I talked about those a little bit earlier. And so they're simple systems that the water goes in, goes through the raceway, the fish use it, and then it leaves the raceway and goes out the door. And they're not very efficient, but they're very common, because that's what everybody put in years ago. So we have lots of flow-through raceways located around Wisconsin and elsewhere, and a lot of different hatcheries and a lot of different settings. And we actually have lake trout broodstock that we hold in these raceways. And what we're trying to do here is kind of demonstrate a farm tech style building that protects the raceways and protects the fish, so that they aren't getting any effects from the sun or any effects from predation or anything like that. And these broodstock are part of a project that we're doing with a research scientist out of Washington State who's with NOAA. And he's actually studying the population. He's looking at the populations of lake trout in Lake Superior. We have two different strains. We have fat trout and lean trout. The fat trout are just like it sounds. They need to spend more time on a bicycle or a treadmill. They're fat. And then there's the lean trout. They're kind of lean and slick, and they're up in the shallower water. And those two groups have kind of come together, and there's some issues there. And so he's kind of looking at some of that with some of the state biologists as well, trying to figure out why are these fish behaving the way they're behaving. And we're helping with that project a little bit. We also have some outdoor ponds. And like I mentioned, these ponds would be used to raise fish like yellow perch or walleye. We have some aeration into the pond right here. We have some aerators. We have a feeder. We've got fresh water coming in. And we would aerate this pond, provide fresh water and feed to the fish. And then at the end of the season, we're harvesting those fish. And so what do we really do, right? We talked a little bit about what the facility has, what kind of systems we have, but what do we do on a daily basis? Well, we're conducting applied research to benefit Wisconsin aquaculture, and we also work with a variety of partners. We test theories and ideas with new equipment and supplies to see if it'll work. So a fish farmer might come to us and say, hey, I've got this idea for a fish feeder. I want to use a leaf blower, and I want to make a fish feeder and blow feed into my pond, and I want to see if it'll work. And so maybe we would test that out for him to see if it really works, or does that blower end up getting gummed up with fish feed and stuff like that, and it won't work. And it actually does work, and it's really a fish feeder that's used around the state now. People use leaf blowers and blow feed out into the ponds. We cooperate with private, state, tribal, and federal partners to conduct projects. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Partnering up is really important in today's day of age, not only financially, but also it's just the right thing to do. And so we do a lot of work together. And we host and conduct training workshops at the facility. So depending on what's happening, we may host a workshop on recirculation aquaculture. We may host a workshop on walleye culture. We have somebody in the audience who was at that one, Bob. And we work internationally and give presentations at conferences all over the country and all over the world. Some of our research is presented at international conferences, and we share that information with partners all over the place. And so what are we doing in the facility? So we've got some different pictures here on the screen. We're looking at some, looks like a coho salmon and a brook trout in a cup there. And we've got a young man and a young lady who are probably interns working on projects, and some yellow perch and some tanks. And so basically we're just showing we have some experimental tank design setups. We're monitoring the water quality in those tanks, and we have interns that are helping with that and gaining some valuable experience so that they can go out into the workforce. This is a typical graph that might show some of our results. This is actually looking at hybrid walleye versus purebred walleye growth and weight. So these lines are showing different weights of groups of fish as they were raised, as we were doing a project to compare hybrid walleye versus purebred walleye. This is actually one of our keystone research projects we've been working on for quite some time, and we're starting to get Wisconsin farmers on board. We actually have a couple farmers that are doing this now, that are starting to sell fish to the market, and we're going to be presenting some of this research at the World Aquaculture Society meeting in February. Again, I talked about partnerships with private, federal, state, tribal, and university entities around the world, encompassing a lot of areas, right? And I think, so the facility has been quite successful. We are booked up right now with research projects for at least the next couple years. And we have people calling us all the time asking for more projects, and they want to do this, they want to do that, and I have to tell them, we're too busy right now, we can't do it, but we'll put you on the docket for 2018 or 2020. And why are we so successful? And I think we found a niche where the recipe for success for us is these partnerships. So we're working with private aquaculture interests, and this group here, this Aquaterra is the main name of the company. They're down in southern Wisconsin, and we've been working with them to look at the feasibility of raising Arctic char as a food fish for Wisconsin. And it's taken off very well for them. They've actually built a facility, and they are hiring some of our interns and some of our technicians to work there. And they are raising Arctic char and selling them to the Chicago and Milwaukee markets. And Arctic char is a really good fish to eat if you've never had it. It's like a sweet salmon. It's really good. And again, I like to eat fish. So, developing protocols for lake herring production. So that was a collaboration with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewas. We looked at raising lake herring because there's interest in restoring and stocking those fish to Lake Michigan and Lake Huron because they've been extirpated. And so the Fish and Wildlife Service in particular is very interested in this, and they're actually building a hatchery to raise lake herring, but there's a small problem. They've never raised lake herring. So they're building this hatchery and they don't know how to raise lake herring, so guess who they came to find out about it? They came and talked to us and said, hey, would you guys be interested in partnering on this? Because we've raised lake herring before. And so we were able to help them, and we actually are writing a book right now on how to raise lake herring for the facility that's being constructed right now. I talked a little bit about this earlier. This is one of the private Wisconsin farms. He got a small business innovation research grant to study hybrid walleye, and a lot of the fish farmers come to us to help partner for grants and to help partner for research because they just a lot of times don't have the resources available. So the university is able to really help them with that and dedicate some resources to that for research projects. And this one has turned into a really good one. It's edible success, basically. So what do I mean by that? So starting with a fingerling hybrid walleye, this is a native hybrid in Wisconsin. It's called a sawguy, and it's nothing fancy. It happens in the wild, but they grow quite quickly. So this hybrid can be grown up to a market-sized fish in less than a year, and then it results in some really, really nice Friday night fish fries. So this farmer has taken this under his wing, and he's moving forward with it. He's been at it for a couple years now, and he's slowly growing his facility, and we hope soon he'll be able to supply fingerlings to other groups, other private farmers, and that he'll be able to help them as well. So we've helped him all along this process. Aquaponics, I touched on that. And aquaponics is a true public-private partnership that we have going on right now. Its big driving force is to educate the workforce. So we've been working with Nelson and Pade. Nelson and Pade is one of the leading consulting aquaponics groups in the country, and they're based in Montello, Wisconsin. And UW Stevens Point has been partnering with them, and they've been able to offer the first university aquaponics course in the state, and it's one of 3 or 4 in the nation that's accredited. And so the university has an opportunity to teach these kids. They have an opportunity to go to Nelson and Pade and work at a real-life aquaponics facility and get some certification, which will help them later on in life. Another really important part of what we do is our outreach. We do tons and tons of interactive tours. We do kindergarten through 12th grade. We do college, universities as well, and we also do lots of other folks in between. We easily do several hundred visitors every year. I think the number that's listed here is quite low. I think we've done quite a bit more than that. And we get people from all over the world that come to visit our facility. We actually get requests from people. I have some folks from Ontario that have requested to come work with us to see how we do the walleye stuff. And so they're requesting to send some techs, biologists and techs to work with us. We also work locally with all of our schools. Bayfield, Ashland, and Washburn all have aquaponics and aquaculture programs now, and these have been incorporated into their curriculums. So we're actually, the kids are now learning this even as far back as elementary and middle school, and then they're coming to high school. They have a real aquaponics system to work on and grow some vegetables and some fish. And then by the time they go to college, if they're interested in this, they've got a good hands-on working idea, and we're starting to recruit kids from the high school now that are going to the colleges and coming out of college and we're recruiting them as technicians, and then we're finding them jobs. We provide a lot of technical assistance and fish for our various partners, and we're on the phone all the time. We're open 24 hours a day, it seems like, because we're getting phone calls all the time because the fish don't care that it's Johnny's birthday or that it's Christmas or whatever. The fish will just die on you if you don't take care of them. So we have to provide a good technical assistance, and we have to be able to respond to calls quickly. And we try to do that as best we can. We also give lots and lots of presentations, just like this one tonight. We give presentations all over the country and internationally as well, and we go to a lot of industry conferences and try to share our research. And a lot of our information is available on our webpage, so if there's reports or something that are of interest to either you guys or to somebody that's out there, they can get those right off of our webpage. I mentioned job placement. And right now it's been huge for us. Our interns and technicians and even our volunteers have been getting full-time jobs out and about at different places. We just had one that went to Washington State to work for a company that's raising Atlantic salmon, because we're raising Atlantic salmon. And they're working with us, and they liked what's going on, and so they hired one of our technicians. We also just had a technician that recently went over to work for the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior Chippewas, this smiling guy up here in the corner. He was with us for 5 years. He learned an awful lot. Was a great technician, and they got a really good worker over there now from him. So we're educating the workforce, and we're doing that with hands-on training, experience, and applied research, so that these kids come out of college with a degree, but they come out of college with hands-on training, experience, and applied research under their belt. And right now they are in demand. I can't place them quick enough right now. I got people calling looking for more. We also work pretty closely with our UW Extension agents. We actually have a couple that were aquaculture agents around the state, and we've worked with them to help create some jobs and save some jobs and provide assistance to a lot of different fish farmers that are out there. There's a lot of questions, and sometimes it's just a simple question. You know, somebody calls up and says, hey, you know, I've got a pond and I want to put fish in it. What do I need to do? And other times it's really technical. It could be, hey, I've got $1 million and I want to invest in a fish farm. What do I do? So helping people get through that's part of what we're there for as well, as trying to weed through some of that stuff. And if we don't know the answer, we'll try to send you to somebody who does know the answer. And with that, there's my contact information. So again, my name's Greg Fisher. I'm the facilities manager at the Northern Aquaculture Demonstration Facility. And you can visit our webpage at aquaculture.uwsp.edu. Find out all kinds of stuff and come for a visit whenever you would like. I'll take any questions at this time.